This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, I'm here with part 2 of my Witch Mercy Broom building video, and on this video I'm focusing on sculpting the wood-like texture of the main part of the broom, or like the staff rod part. To make the wood-like texture, and what I'm using to sculpt it is something called cloud clay. It's also called Model Magic by Crayola, I think. That's the other name that I found this under. But what it is it's an air drying clay that when it dries it has a fluffy texture. It kind of feels like foam once it's dried, and I decided to use this because I've worked with it before. I remembered it from when I was little, and there was an arts and craft project and I used this, and I remember it dried fluffy, and that's what I wanted because it was fluffy and it's lightweight compared to like other sculpting material that I know, like polymer clay, which I don't know how I would bake this giant rod stuff. And then air dry, just normal air dry clay, because that will break and crumble if you accidentally hit it against something. But this clay, because it dries puffy and foam-like and soft, it doesn't break or crumble if you hit it against something, and it's very easy to sculpt, and it takes a while to dry, so you have room to like reshape stuff as you go along, because I think it dries in like 24 hours or something. So to start off, I'm just applying an entire layer to cover the entire staff part that I'm working on in this clay. It can be any color. I end up painting it. I picked brown because I didn't know if I wanted to paint it in the end, but I eventually decided to. So that's what I'm using here. And all you do is you just press it on. It will stick on pretty well to the broom itself. You don't need any extra glue or anything. At least I didn't find myself needing. If you roll it too much, you do create like a little air gap, and we'll have to like press it back down because it will start to lift away. But once it's dry, it stays to the broom and it won't lift off of it, or stays stuck to the PVC pipe, not the broom. This is not a broom underneath, it's a PVC pipe.
Fun till I downfall, my love, if you feel like I do right now. Don't say you're on the run to the other side, my love. You say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
So I'm packing on the clay in areas that look like it's thicker when comparing it to a reference photo. So around the top part here, it looks like it gets a bit wider and kind of flares out. So I'm adding a few extra layers of this clay and kind of making it thicker in those spots. And to kind of smooth and blend everything together, because it won't just blend if you rub it or pull it or try to use tools like you would if you were using polymer clay. This needs water. So I have a bowl of water next to me that I just dip my finger in it, and then I just go along and smooth out all of the creases and any like indents that I accidentally made, any lines where you can see where I just packed on more clay next to some other piece, and it smooths out like a charm that way.
Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall, my love, if you feel like I do right now. Don't say you're on the run to the other side.
I'm also using reference photos to figure out where there might be like any notches, or that's what I'm going to call this little circular piece that I'm making. I don't know what it's actually called. I'm sure there's a real term for it, but these little like nubs that are on her broomstick here and there, because it is kind of more like a big giant stick rather than a smooth sanded down normal broomstick you'd find in the store. That's what I'm using. I'm just creating little balls of clay, attaching those, and then blending in the edges to create these little lifts around certain pieces. And to figure out where these are, just look at a reference photo. Or you can watch what I'm doing here, because you can kind of see where all the parts that stick out are. And then to create the wood-like texture, I'm using a popsicle stick and an X-Acto knife to kind of just carve away at it. And to smooth out the carvings, I just go over it with water slightly, and if it needs to be more indented, I'll go over it again, and so on. It's really simple. It's a lot of just fiddling with the clay until you get what you think looks good and what you are happy with. So this has been after it's dried for 24 hours. You can see that it's now like a matte color and it looks dry. It looks grayer or duller. And what I'm doing here is I'm just gluing on some extra pieces that I have had yet to glue on. I'm gluing on the little bolts on the side of her thing. That's what they're called. They're called bolts. And then I'm gluing the little handle piece shut as well. And I've marked where the PVC pipes will sit when they're attached into each other, so that I can make sure that I'm not putting clay on those areas when I move on to other parts of the staff. As you can see here, this is the next section that's right below it. I think I've broken it up into 3 parts. So this is the middle piece, and at the end of the middle piece it has a connector, so I don't have to worry about covering that fully because that part will lay over the top of the last piece. But this piece at the top of it lays under or in the piece that we just finished, and I have to make sure not to cover it with clay, so just be aware of that, otherwise your pieces won't fit into each other anymore. And after that, just repeat the same things that we did on the first piece on the rest of the staff or the other sections if you're breaking it up into sections like I have, and let it dry overnight. To let it dry, I just laid it at an angle so that it was tilted up against the wall on the parts that don't have clay covering them, and then leave it to sit. Follow the instructions. Once it's dry, we'll be ready to move on to the next step, which I will cover in the next 2 videos. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys found this helpful, and have a lovely day. Bye!